Red Ice Creations Radio. I am your host, Henrik Palmgren, and we are recording from the west coast of Sweden. The website to keep in mind is redicecreations.com. Stop by and check out our news and, of course, our archive of radio shows and all the other good stuff there's up there for you. Last week we had Freeman on the show, an absolutely superb program. We talked about movies, the occult, and symbolism in general within the entertainment industry, and much, much more. If you missed it, that's definitely something you should backtrack and tune into, so check out our archives. Today our guest is Tim Binnall, and our main topic today is ufology, and we'll talk about the field itself and about some of the different theories and ideas, and also, of course, we'll talk about Tim's own website and radio show. It's always interesting to talk with other radio hosts out there who are spreading the word and sparking people's interest in these topics. So good stuff coming up with Tim and myself, so stay tuned. Welcome, folks. Today we are joined by Tim Binnall, the man behind and I guess founder of the website binnallofamerica.com, a site that primarily caught my interest because of the excellent Binnall of America audio, a weekly radio show / podcast featuring excellent interviews, I guess mainly focusing on researching the UFO phenomena, but also a few other things also. And the website has a lot of different sections on it and a lot of different people writing for the site. So beyond diving into the UFO area today with Tim, I'd also like to talk about Tim's website, how we got started in this field and so forth. Also, it's very timely to have Tim on and talking about UFO, considering at least what I've been picking up on it as a casual observer in the recent kind of surge, I guess, in the UFO stories, like the O'Hare sighting in Chicago and so forth. We're going to dive into that a little bit later on, but anyhow, one thing at a time here. So let's say hello to Tim, and it's very nice to have you here, and thanks for spending some time with us today.
Oh, is it Henrik?
Henrik, yeah.
Henrik, all right.
Sure.
Oh, Henrik, this is just awesome. I've never done an interview before, so it's like bizarro Binnall of America audio here. And I'm excited to see what you bring to the table here and challenge me with, and it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on the program, and hello to all the great Red Ice Radio listeners.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tim. It's great to have you here. As I said, I'd love to, a little bit later on, dive into a lot of the different topics and so forth that you cover on the site and so forth. But let's begin at the beginning, and maybe for people who aren't aware of you or your website and your material and so forth, talk a little bit about yourself and your background, and of course how you got started in this field.
Oh wow, it's quite a story. I guess if I was going to start at the beginning, I was born and raised in Boston, Mass, and went to school in upstate New York, Syracuse University, and got my degree in TV, radio, and film up there. And when I got out of college, I was sort of struggling with that transition between college life and the real world, if you will. And along the way, I'd always had a casual sort of interest in the esoteric and the paranormal world at large. And so I kind of meandered around for a while. And then one day I discovered Rule by Secrecy by Jim Marrs, which was like the first esoteric book I really read. And that opened up like a whole gateway of looking into things and, following up on all these interesting sort of side roads and tangents that came out of that book. And then it sort of blossomed from there. I discovered Coast to Coast AM, and devoted a lot of time to listening to that program and finding out more about who all these different people were that were occupying this crazy world of the esoteric. Because I had never heard about it. I didn't know who any of these people were, and some of them were amazing, some of them were laughable, and some of them were all points in between. So along the way, I had a website when I was younger in college that was just sort of like just a goofy sort of thing, and after I got out of college, I had lapsed on being online, and I kind of had a feeling that I wanted to get back my creative juices going again. And I said I want to get back online, and that's how binnallofamerica.com came about. And it started out with just me and a couple buddies from high school talking about random stuff, not even the esoteric. And these two roads converged as I got more into the esoteric and I started focusing more on that, Binnall of America became focused on that site. And coincidentally, one of my friends who was from the beginning still writes for us now and again, Joe V. So he's been here through the whole transition, and it's just been a snowball since then. I mean, we started covering Coast to Coast, then we started bringing in great writers, Michael Chiron Brun and Leslie Gruner, who are amazing, and they write K-Files and Gray Matters. And sort of kept building along with the idea that Binnall of America was going to become a think tank in the world of the esoteric. And at first we sort of coined ourselves that as sort of a tongue-in-cheek way, because you always sort of think of think tanks as these like sinister corporations that are controlling the world. So, you know, I mean, if we're fighting the bad guys and the conspiracy, the people behind the big conspiracy, we might as well emulate them, I guess. So we became a think tank. And really, over time, we actually sort of turned into a think tank in a strange way, where the writers for Binnall of America have pursued their own avenues of research and sort of filled voids that haven't been looked at before. Like Leslie's doing an amazing job of chronicling international UFO websites and the translations for those pages, and our other columnist, Regan Lee, is doing an amazing job of looking at women in the esoteric and trying to catalog those people. And Michael Chiron has some big plans with esoteric film coming up in 2007. So, in a way, Binnall of America, we didn't just want to cover the esoteric. We wanted to look at it in a new way, find avenues that haven't been explored before, and try and fill that void with some quality material. And I don't know, I'm going to keep rambling here. So what else would you like to know?
I think your connection to, I mean, do you think that Coast to Coast as such has kind of boosted your interest in all of this? I mean, of course, you mentioned Jim Marrs' book, Ruled by Secrecy, but I mean, you have a connection to Coast. You've been writing for their magazine, correct?
Yeah. Well, I had become good friends with their webmaster, Lex Lonehood, who's just a top-notch individual, quality guy, and he was like made editor in charge of an edition of After Dark, and he asked me if I wanted to write for him. Well, kind of how my overall friendship, if you will, with Coast to Coast started was just that I started writing recaps of the past week of Coast to Coast and a preview of the next week. And in a lot of ways, that sort of also encompasses the whole mindset of Binnall of America in the way that no one was doing this. No one was covering what was on in this program. You know, if I had missed an episode, I wanted to know what was on, and the only place I could find out really was on the Coast to Coast website. But it has so many listeners, and really, it was I had to fill that void in a way because there was no one else doing it. And you know, thankfully, Leslie does a bang-up job. She started her own column doing almost the same thing called C2C Rewind, and that's great because we need, you know, as much as people in the esoteric world want to begrudge Coast to Coast and George Norrie and Arbel and all that stuff, they laid the groundwork for what you're doing and what I'm doing, and whether you like it or not, Coast to Coast AM is the program of record as far as the esoteric world goes. It's what if someone goes on there and says something, you know, more people are going to hear that than they're going to hear it if they're on Binnall of America or Red Ice or any other radio program that covers the esoteric. To not acknowledge that and to not, it's like the 400-pound elephant in the room. I mean, to not say anything about it is completely counterproductive. And that sort of is part of also what we do, because we want to take a big picture look at the esoteric. We don't want to get bogged down in little sort of details. We want to look at the big picture and really sort of focus on that.
So I guess you're like me in that sense. You spent a lot of hours listening to online talk radio or regular talk radio, I guess, in these kind of fields.
Oh, I've listened to countless hours of esoteric radio, and kind of that's how Binnall of America Audio got started in a way. I mean, we planned on producing this radio program over a year before we even launched the first interview. And spent a lot of time thinking about what we wanted to be and what other radio shows were and how we didn't want to be like them in a lot of ways.
So, I mean, considering that you guys actually started the radio show, did you think that, you know, there was kind of a void in the area that needs to be, you know, kind of filled, or were you just kind of? Did you want to talk to these guests yourself, ask them the right questions, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it might be like that sort of thing. I mean, excuse me. It started out really where, like, I had my own questions for these people, and I didn't think they were getting asked, and I also wanted to ask them sort of the tough questions. Like if a guest is, if people claim some guest is a disinformation agent, and they might not get asked that on their other radio appearances, I want to ask them that on Binnall of America. I want to ask what they say to their critics who, say that they're bad for their field and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like in a lot of ways, a lot of esoteric programs focus on the story, like you bring in on a guest and he's a ufologist and you're going to talk about UFOs, but you're not really going to spend any time talking about ufology. What's going on with ufology? Where is it at? What does it need to do to evolve? What's it going to do about the lack of young people? We want to look at the big picture.
Interesting, yeah. And I mean, do you find it, difficult to pick and choose guests in that sense? I mean, or is the field flooded, so to speak? No,
the field is absolutely flooded with quality people to have on the program. It's really more a matter of time and energy, really. I mean, the bulk of the radio program's entirely produced by me. I do it all myself. So if I could, I would interview like 4 people a day, but I'd need like a staff of like 4 people to run the whole operation. Sure. I don't have that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. It does take time. I certainly know that myself. So having great help from my brother Frederick here, who handles the audio for me. I wouldn't.
Is Frederick in the booth now?
Yeah, he's right here.
What's up, Frederick? How you doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
He's right there. I don't know if he's got mic. He's got his mic on or not.
That's cool. Just tell him to wave.
Yeah, he's waving.
Nice.
All right. So I mean, as you say, you this is quite an interesting angle on it, because ufology, as you say, in itself is a field, and I guess we could kind of dive into that area right now, kind of. I don't know if you wanna go in that area, but I mean, do you have
I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about, Henry.
Yeah, sure, awesome. I mean, do you have any kind of if I say it like this, where do you have an entrance point here, so to speak? Have you ever witnessed a UFO yourself?
The part about it all is that it's really hard to categorize what we do. We're all over the map.
Yeah,
and that's what's exciting about the whole operation.
Have you?
But I mean, what would you?
Yeah.
What compelled you to bring me back? I mean, to bring me on Red Ice Radio in the first place? What sort of piqued your interest? Turn it around on you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's always interesting to get a host on, because they often get a good overview of the area or the topic they're interested in, simply because they actually talk to so many different people, and in one sense, a regular researcher in that sense kind of can get a bit of a tunnel vision, I guess, into the area, and
exactly.
and a bit narrow in that sense. I mean, I wanted to have you on today to kind of get an overview on the UFO area and the topics and what do you think about it and so forth and all of that. So I mean, I also wanted to ask you, of course, have you ever witnessed a UFO yourself?
Oh no, I've never seen a UFO. I've never seen Bigfoot or a ghost. I'm completely barren for paranormal experiences, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. So I mean,
yeah, it's really depressing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's quite interesting because obviously the area is. I mean, what do you think kind of attracted you towards it? I mean, is it the mystery itself of these things? If we talk about UFOs mainly here, but or do you think that it's like the consequences of if we actually find out what these things are? I mean, what compelled you to look at this?
I'm shaking my head here at the consequences. Definitely the consequences. I think